This wasn't just a match. It was betrayal, broadcast live. Solo Sikoa didn't just beat Jacob Fatu, he broke him. Fatu walked into SmackDown with pride. The crowd? Roaring. His cousin across the ring? Still family. They were raised on the same legacy. Same bloodline. Same dream. He never expected what came next. Solo didn't hesitate. No handshake. No warning. Just a brutal ambush. A super kick to the face, a Samoan spike to the throat. Fatu looked stunned, not from the pain, but the betrayal. In that ring, he wasn't facing a cousin. He was facing a monster built by power, not love. As Jacob lay motionless, Solo whispered, "This is my island now." Was this revenge, or the start of something darker? Subscribe now, because this family feud just turned into a civil war. What if I told you the most brutal betrayal in WWE history wasn't just about ambition or ego, but about family? Not the kind of family you choose, but the one you were born into. The kind with bloodlines that trace back through 3 generations of champions. The kind that eats together, trains together, wins together, and then, one night, one of them snaps. That night was Friday, on WWE SmackDown, when Solo Sikoa walked into the ring like a silent bomb and blew up the very foundation of wrestling's most dominant dynasty. Across from him stood Jacob Fatu, his cousin, his kin, his equal. The crowd was electric. This was supposed to be a moment. A celebration. Fatu, finally in WWE, standing tall under the bright lights, repping the same bloodline that built an empire on the backs of warriors like Yokozuna, The Rock, Roman Reigns, and Rikishi. And then, everything changed. Before the bell even rang, before a single move could be exchanged, Solo struck. No warning. No handshake. No explanation. Just violence. A super kick to the jaw. A thunderous Samoan spike to the throat. And then the most chilling moment of the night. Solo leaned over the crumpled body of his cousin and whispered, "This is my island now." No one clapped. No one booed. The crowd didn't know how to react. This wasn't heel heat. This wasn't hype. This was real. This was a civil war live on television. And it left every single WWE fan asking the same question, why? To understand what happened in that ring, we have to rewind, not to last week, not even to last year, but to decades ago, when the bloodline was more than just a storyline. It was a family, forged in combat and nurtured in pain. The Anoa'i family has been wrestling royalty since the territory days. They're not just a faction. They're the blueprint. From Alpha and Sikoa to Rikishi, Umaga, Roman Reigns, and the Usos, their legacy stretches across every major era of wrestling. If you've cheered during the Attitude Era, screamed during the PG era, or been blown away by today's cinematic storytelling, you've witnessed the bloodline's influence. They are wrestling incarnate. So when Jacob Fatu finally made his long-anticipated arrival in WWE, it wasn't just a debut, it was a homecoming. Fans had waited years. They'd seen what he did in MLW, destroying challengers, redefining violence, and dragging that company into the spotlight with sheer brute force. He wasn't just dominant, he was feral. The idea of Fatu standing beside Roman Reigns or clashing with Solo Sikoa had fantasy bookers frothing for months. But in wrestling, just like in family, not everyone is happy to see you succeed. Enter Solo Sikoa. The enforcer. The quiet one. The storm without thunder. He wasn't handed the throne like Roman. He wasn't raised alongside twin brothers like Jimmy and Jay. He was the outsider. The youngest. The one thrown into the battlefield and told, "Prove you belong." And prove it he did. From the moment Solo arrived in WWE, he was different. No flashy promos. No pandering to the crowd. Just business. And that business was breaking people. Cena. Riddle. Kevin Owens. even his own brothers. Solo didn't care about legacy. He cared about dominance. So when Jacob Fatu stepped onto his turf, SmackDown, his ring, his moment, Solo didn't see family. He saw a threat. And threats don't get warnings. They get ended. After the attack, WWE production tried to carry on. Replays rolled. Commentators scrambled. The camera cut away, trying to patch up what couldn't be undone. But nothing could soften what we had just witnessed. Jacob Fatu wasn't just lying on the mat. He was erased. The pride of the Anoa'i lineage, disrespected, dismantled, and discarded. And Solo? He didn't gloat. He didn't scream. He didn't celebrate. He simply walked out of the ring and up the ramp like he'd just taken out the trash. No one from the back came to check on Fatu. No medics ran down the ramp. No referees swarmed the ring. It was like they all knew this wasn't a match. It was a message. And the message was clear: the bloodline is dead. This is my island now. But was it? Was this just one man lashing out in fear? Or was this the start of a calculated coup to dismantle the empire Roman built, brick by brick, cousin by cousin? Solo Sikoa didn't just betray Jacob Fatu. He rewrote the rules. He split the bloodline. He burned the family tree to the ground. And he did it on live television. So what happens next? Who sides with Solo? Who defends the old guard? Will Roman return to put the pieces back together, or will he find his house has already been looted and claimed? This wasn't just a shocking moment in WWE. This was the genesis of something bigger. And if this was just the first strike in the war, then you better subscribe. Because the real destruction is still to come. To understand the violence that unfolded on SmackDown, you have to understand the blood that fueled it. This isn't a story about two men in a ring. This is a story about a dynasty built on bruises, betrayals, and battle scars. A story about the Anoa'i family, and the price of carrying a legacy you didn't choose but can't escape. The Anoa'i name isn't just legendary in wrestling, it's woven into the industry's foundation. If you've ever watched wrestling for more than a week, you've seen their fingerprints. You've heard the names: The Rock, Roman Reigns, Yokozuna, Rikishi, Umaga, the Usos. What you may not realize is that these names don't just share history. They share blood. This family didn't stumble into greatness. They forged it. Not in boardrooms or marketing meetings, but in rings across the world. From dim-lit bingo halls in the 1970s to packed stadiums in the 2020s, generation after generation has stepped between the ropes carrying the same burden: exceed what came before. Don't just win. Dominate. Don't just entertain. Define the era. That's what Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu were born into. Before either of them had even laced a boot, expectations were already stitched into their skin. They weren't just wrestlers. They were descendants of champions. And in this family, lineage isn't a legacy, it's a challenge. From the moment you're born, the clock starts ticking. How long until you live up to your bloodline? And what happens if you don't? The wild Samoans, Afa and Sikoa, laid the foundation. They weren't polished, they weren't pretty. They were chaos in motion. Brawlers with no regard for finesse or favor. They terrorized tag divisions and became one of the most feared duos in wrestling history. Their influence stretched far beyond the ropes. They opened the door for every Samoan wrestler who followed, and set the tone for how they'd be viewed. Not as gimmicks. As gladiators. Rikishi took that ethos and spun it into his own style. Flashier, sure. But no less brutal. He danced, he smiled, but he also crushed people with a 400-pound frame. He turned heads, bent rules, and produced not just moments, but sons who'd take the family name to global heights: Jimmy and Jey Uso. And then, the youngest, Solo Sikoa. On the other side of the tree, there's the Fatu line. Jacob, a direct descendant of the Tonga Kid and cousin to the Usos, cut a different path. While the others signed with WWE early, Jacob went to war in the independents. He didn't have billion-dollar lights to protect him. He earned every scar in gritty venues, fighting for respect with nothing but force and fury. While Roman Reigns was being crowned as WWE's tribal chief, Jacob Fatu was suplexing bodies through guardrails in MLW. While Solo Sikoa was making his name as NXT's silent executioner, Fatu was carving a legacy as the most dangerous man outside WWE. For years, fans whispered, "What happens when this outsider comes home?" Because make no mistake, WWE was always the goal. Not because it was mainstream, but because that ring, that stage, that camera, it's the ultimate proving ground. In the Inoue family, WWE isn't just a company. It's the final step in the family rite of passage. So when Jacob Fatu finally arrived, fans held their breath. Here was a man who dominated everywhere but WWE, finally stepping into the same ring where his bloodline became immortal. He wasn't here to shake hands. He was here to take his place. Not beside anyone, but across from them if he had to. And who stood across from him? Solo. Not Roman. Not Jimmy. Not Jay. Solo Sikoa. The youngest. The most unpredictable. The one who had been quiet for too long. It would have made sense for them to embrace. For a nod. A fist bump. Some show of unity, at least. Two sons of the same legacy, walking the same path. But that didn't happen. Because in a family built on violence, respect isn't given, it's taken. And Solo Sikoa had already carved his path with broken bodies. He didn't rise by clinging to cousins. He rose by tearing through enemies. Bloodline or not, Jacob Fatu was just another body standing where Solo didn't want company. People forget what pressure does. The weight of legacy doesn't just inspire, it fractures. When you grow up being told who you are and who you're supposed to become, it creates cracks. You either fill them with purpose, or let them split you in two. Solo filled them with silence. He didn't complain. He didn't beg for his moment. He watched Roman take the throne. He watched Jimmy and Jay struggle with betrayal, loyalty, redemption. And when they all started to fall apart, he didn't try to pick up the pieces. He moved in. Quietly. Calmly. Like someone who already knew what needed to be done. That's what made his attack so chilling. He didn't scream. He didn't rage. He walked into the ring, looked his cousin in the eye, and decided in a split second, "You don't belong here. Not beside me. Not above me. Not even across from me. You belong beneath me." And that's exactly where he left him. WWE thrives on conflict. On storyline. But every once in a while, something cuts deeper than entertainment. Something feels true. Solo's betrayal of Jacob wasn't just a twist. It was the culmination of everything the bloodline has represented: respect through dominance. Trust through fear. Love through war. That ring wasn't a wrestling stage that night. It was a battlefield. And Solo didn't come to wrestle. He came to conquer. It's easy to see wrestling betrayals as scripted drama. A plot beat. A setup for the next match. But when family is involved, real family, there's another layer. A discomfort. A truth that bleeds through the canvas. Because even if they shake hands backstage, even if they're aligned in creative meetings, something still lingers. That stare. That super kick. That spike. It happened. And it changed everything. When Solo whispered, "This is my island now," he wasn't just talking to Jacob. He was talking to Roman. To Jimmy. To Jay. To Paul Heyman. To every fan who thought he was just the muscle. Just the enforcer. He was saying, "I'm not just a piece of the bloodline. I am the bloodline. And he made that declaration not with a promo, not with a title, but with an assault. The most intimate betrayal in the most visible arena. That's what legacy does. It doesn't just raise you, it sharpens you. Until all that's left is someone willing to shatter their own blood just to prove they deserve the crown. And if Jacob Fatu was the first to fall, he won't be the last. For years, Jacob Fatu was the biggest name not in WWE. He wasn't just a standout on the independent scene, he owned it. A wrecking ball in a human body. A 6 feet 2 inches, 285-pound powerhouse with terrifying agility and a presence that filled arenas. Fans knew his name. Wrestlers feared his momentum. Promoters chased his signature. But for the longest time, WWE never pulled the trigger. And so Fatu built his legacy outside the system. He dominated MLW, winning the World Heavyweight Championship and holding it for nearly 800 days. Not months. Years. He became the company's anchor, its draw, its identity. He took that title and defended it in steel cages, street fights, and no-rules death matches. He bled for it. He broke men for it. And all the while, one question echoed louder than any promo he cut: when is Jacob Fatu coming to WWE? For the fans, it felt inevitable. He had the look. The pedigree. The charisma. The wild-eyed unpredictability. More than that, he had the bloodline. A direct tie to the Anoa'i dynasty, and cousins with the very men running WWE's top storyline. Roman Reigns. The Usos. Solo Sikoa. Bringing him in wasn't just a good idea, it was destiny. But WWE hesitated. There were whispers. Rumors of legal trouble. Creative disagreements. Questions about whether Fatu could adapt to the WWE machine. Whether he'd play the game. Whether he'd tone it down. Fit the mold. The thing is, Fatu doesn't mold. He reshapes what's around him. When WWE finally made the call, it wasn't a test. It was a coronation. They didn't bring him in to warm the bench. They brought him in to shock the system. And no moment captured that more than his first walk down the SmackDown ramp. The lights hit. The music dropped. And Jacob Fatu walked into the biggest spotlight of his career with fire in his chest and war in his eyes. He didn't come out smiling. No arms wide open. No pandering to the crowd. He moved like a man who had something to prove, not to the fans, not even to his opponents, but to the system that had kept him out. He stared down the camera and let his presence speak. The crowd didn't cheer out of politeness. They roared. It wasn't hype. It was recognition. This wasn't a debut. This was an arrival. The air in the arena shifted. People felt it. The weight of something new. Something dangerous. This wasn't a guy being positioned as the next Roman. He didn't need to be. He was a different kind of threat. Roman commands with calm. Fatu controls with chaos. Roman manipulates. Fatu mauls. And then he stepped into the ring, and saw Solo Sikoa waiting. It should have been a moment of unity. The youngest sons of the dynasty, both forged in violence, both molded by rejection and raw hunger. But they didn't hug. Didn't nod. Didn't acknowledge each other in any brotherly way. They stood like predators in the same territory. For Jacob Fatu, it was familiar. This wasn't the first time he'd stepped into a ring and sensed the tension in another man's posture. But this one felt different. Solo didn't look like he wanted a match. He looked like he wanted a war. Fatu, to his credit, didn't flinch. He wasn't here to bow to anyone. Not Roman. Not Solo. Not WWE. He was here to claim his seat at the table, or flip the damn table if he had to. And that's exactly what made him so dangerous. Jacob Fatu's style isn't built for performance. It's built for punishment. He doesn't wrestle. He attacks. He doesn't wear people down over 20 minutes. He explodes in seconds. Suplexes out of nowhere. Spinning kicks at full force. Diving headbutts from the top rope like he's trying to crack the mat open. He brings energy that makes agents nervous and veterans respect him. Because even if it's your turn to win, you're not walking out the same. He hurts people. Not out of malice, but because that's what he was raised to do. In that moment, standing across from Solo, the crowd wasn't just excited. They were uncertain. Because deep down, they knew what this meant. This wasn't a fight for momentum. This was a fight for identity. You don't bring two lions into the same den and expect them to share the space. The tension wasn't just in the story. It was in the real world too. Hardcore fans had long debated, who's the real monster of the bloodline? Is it Solo, quiet, methodical, a sledgehammer in human form? Or is it Jacob Fatu, wild, raw, and destructive like a rolling explosion? The bell never got the chance to answer that. Solo didn't wait. As the ref motioned toward the center, as Jacob stepped forward for what could have been the most anticipated stare-down in recent SmackDown history, Solo struck. A super kick out of nowhere. Not a stiff one. A murderous one. Then, as Fatu stumbled, confused more than hurt, Solo followed with the Samoan spike. One movement. One moment. And Jacob Fatu, a man who had bulldozed through promotions for years, was dropped like a rookie. The crowd gasped. There was no bell. No match. No start. No ending. Just a message. And the scariest part wasn't the move. It wasn't the betrayal. It was how fast it all happened. In less than 10 seconds, the dream match became a nightmare. The long-awaited arrival turned into a public execution. WWE didn't introduce Jacob Fatu to the world. They sacrificed him on live TV. Why? Because Solo Sikoa didn't want a match. He wanted control. Fatu came to WWE to take his place. Solo made sure there wasn't a place left to take. This wasn't a scripted rivalry. This was a power check. A dominance display. A younger cousin telling an older one, you may be family, but you are not equal. It wasn't just a message to Fatu, it was a statement to everyone watching, the bloodline isn't a family tree anymore. It's a kingdom. And Solo Sikoa doesn't share the throne. The look on Fatu's face as he hit the mat wasn't just pain, it was betrayal. Not just physical. Emotional. This was supposed to be a shared dream. They were raised on the same tapes. Trained by the same elders. They both grew up hearing the same stories about the honor of the bloodline. But as Jacob lay there, stunned, it became clear, only one of them believed that dream still existed. And it wasn't Solo. He walked away without looking back. Without waiting for boos. Without throwing up the one. Because he wasn't trying to entertain. He was trying to establish ownership. He didn't just take Jacob's moment. He took his pride. He stole his purpose. And he did it with a level of ease that shook even the most jaded fans. Because if that was Jacob Fatu's welcome to WWE, what the hell comes next? It was supposed to be just another episode of SmackDown. The kind fans mark on their calendars but don't expect history from. A couple of solid matches. Some promos. Maybe a surprise return. But on this night, something was off from the very beginning. The air felt heavier. The lights brighter. The crowd louder than usual. But in that specific way that happens when people sense they're about to witness something big. They just don't know what. The WWE Universe came in buzzing with questions. Would Roman return tonight? Was this the night Jimmy Uso came back after his injury? What's next for the crumbling bloodline? But few could have predicted what was actually coming. Not a reunion. Not a reconciliation. A reckoning. And it started the moment Jacob Fatu's music hit. For those who didn't know the name, the reaction must have felt strange. A newcomer? On SmackDown? Getting this kind of pop? But hardcore fans knew. They'd been waiting for this. When the camera panned to the entrance ramp and Jacob Fatu stepped out, it felt seismic. He didn't run. He didn't throw up the one. He didn't look shocked to be there. He looked like he belonged. His walk was slow. Focused. Not cocky, deliberate. The way a lion walks into a cage already knowing it owns it. The music hit, the lights pulsed, but Fatu wasn't interested in the spectacle. He was locked in. Inside the ring stood Solo Sikoa. No expression. No movement. Just standing still like a statue carved from pure threat. The tension was instant. You could feel it watching from home. The camera operators knew it too. Cutting tight to Solo's eyes, then to Fatu's face, then wide on the two of them as if to say, "This is what you came for." And it was. There were no words exchanged. No gestures. Just eye contact. Deep. Cold. Charged with 1,000 unspoken emotions. Family. History. Expectation. Competition. If the camera had panned backstage, you might have seen producers watching nervously. Commentators checking their notes. Because when two men like this share a ring, there's no safety net. The referee entered. The bell hadn't rung yet, but the audience was already standing. They weren't cheering anymore. They were just watching. Studying. Trying to figure out what the hell was about to happen. Fatu stepped forward. Slowly. Arms relaxed but chest out. Like a man ready to fight but waiting for the reason. Solo didn't move. It was all happening in slow motion. Then the ref stepped in to check them both, standard pre-match routine. Fatu didn't even blink. He took a step toward center ring. That's when it happened. Solo exploded. No warning. No signal. Just a blur of movement. A super kick, vicious, sudden, and fast. It landed flush on Fatu's jaw. The sound echoed. You could hear the crack, like a bat hitting concrete. The crowd gasped, not cheered, not booed, gasped. Fatu stumbled back, not just from the impact, but from the shock. He had just walked in the door, and his own cousin had blindsided him. No lockup. No signal. No mercy. Before he could react, Solo closed the gap. A Samoan spike followed instantly, his thumb jammed into Fatu's throat with such precision and power, it folded him. Fatu collapsed. Not flopped. Collapsed. And then came the moment that turned a brutal attack into something unforgettable. Solo crouched. Leaned in close, inches from Fatu's motionless face, and whispered, "This is my island now." That's when it stopped being just an ambush. That's when it became a message. The crowd didn't know what to do. The energy dropped into something darker. People weren't booing. They were watching in stunned silence. That silence spoke louder than any chant. WWE knows the difference between heat and horror, and this was horror. The commentators were scrambling. Their tones shifted from hype to alarm. What the hell is Solo doing? We haven't even started the match. That's his cousin. Backstage, even the locker room looked different. No one ran out to help. No trainers. No officials. It was like the attack had frozen the entire system. Fatu didn't move. Not for 30 seconds. Not for a minute. And as the camera zoomed in, you could see the look in his eyes. Not pain. Not rage. Betrayal. That single expression told the whole story. Fatu had come into SmackDown believing in something. The family. The bond. The legacy. That belief just got snapped in half by someone who shared his blood. Solo didn't gloat. Didn't taunt. He just stood up and walked out of the ring. No music. No raised hand. No declaration. Because what he just did didn't need fanfare. He didn't win a match. He ended a narrative. And the timing of it couldn't have been more deliberate. SmackDown wasn't just any episode. The bloodline storyline was in flux. Roman Reigns had been absent. Jimmy and Jay were MIA. Paul Heyman was silent. And now, Jacob Fatu, a new variable, fresh blood, unexpected fire, had walked in. Solo decided to extinguish it before it could even burn. What made the moment so intense wasn't just the attack. It was what it revealed. This wasn't about jealousy. This wasn't petty. It was tactical. In Solo's mind, the bloodline had become too weak, too sentimental. Roman was gone. Jay was off doing his own thing. Jimmy was injured and confused. The family was unraveling. And now here comes Fatu, riding high, earning fan adoration, being called the next great one. Solo wasn't about to let that narrative take root. He didn't just cut it off. He tore it out by the roots. The broadcast tried to move on. Other matches followed. But none of them hit. None of them could. The energy had shifted permanently. Online, it was instant chaos. Within minutes, Solo and Jacob Fatu were trending. Screenshots of the attack. Fan reactions. Slow-motion replays. Tweets ranging from "what the hell just happened" to "Solo just ended his own cousin and I'm here for it." Even wrestlers outside WWE started posting. Shock. Admiration. Fear. Because Solo had just reminded everyone that he's not a background character. He's a main character with a vendetta. And he's not waiting his turn anymore. The scariest part? It worked. Within 10 minutes, the headlines had shifted. Not Jacob Fatu debuts on SmackDown. Now it was Solo Sikoa destroys his cousin on live TV. That's control. That's power. That's how you claim the island. What happens next isn't just a continuation of the bloodline story, it's a new chapter entirely. And it started with a 10-second ambush that stole the oxygen from an arena and changed the landscape of SmackDown. The bell never rang. The match never started. But the war. The war began. It wasn't a match. It wasn't a moment. It was a demolition. The second Solo Sikoa moved, the illusion shattered. The illusion that this was going to be a wrestling bout, a family reunion, or even a confrontation rooted in conflict. There was no build-up. No stare-down. No hype package. No entrance pyro time to a handshake. There was no room for tradition, because Solo came with one purpose: erase Jacob Fatu before he ever had the chance to matter. And that's exactly what he did. The ambush wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was brutal in its simplicity. One superkick. One Samoan spike. One whisper. The rest was silence. In that instant, Solo did something that shook even the most seasoned wrestling fans. He broke expectation. This wasn't part of the script. At least it didn't feel like it. It didn't follow WWE's usual rhythm. No bell, no commentary setup, no sign that the match had started. And that's what made it horrifying. Because when someone doesn't play by the rules, you don't know what they're capable of. Let's break it down. Fatu stepped forward to square up. That was his first mistake, assuming Solo was there to wrestle. Assuming this would be about proving who was tougher. In Jacob's world, that kind of test was sacred. You test your cousin in the ring, not with words, not with politics, not with fake smiles. You battle. Solo wasn't there to battle. He was there to end something. He didn't even take a step back to wind up. The superkick came from close range. That's what made it hurt more, less about velocity, more about precision. A blunt force trauma with no warning. Fatu didn't even flinch. That's how quick it was. 1 second he was preparing to tie up, the next, his head snapped sideways. His legs didn't buckle right away. There was a second, maybe half a second, where his body hadn't registered what just happened. You could see it on his face, confusion before pain. Then Solo hit the Samoan spike. Not a performance version. Not the kind where you slap your arm first to hype the crowd. No theatrics. Just a quick drive of his thumb into Jacob's throat, like he was trying to collapse his windpipe. Executed perfectly, centerline of the throat, just under the chin. Enough to stun. Enough to disable. Enough to say, "You are not my equal." Fatu hit the mat hard. No protection. No arms out. No shoulder roll. Just a dead drop. The kind of fall that doesn't look like a bump, it looks like gravity betraying you. And then came the moment that sent chills through every viewer's spine. Solo leaned over him, not to gloat, not to taunt, but to speak. Quietly. Directly. Intimately. The kind of whisper you only deliver when you want someone to feel it, not just hear it. "This is my island now." That line wasn't just for Jacob. It wasn't just for the crowd. It was for everyone. Roman. The Usos. Paul Heyman. The fans. The locker room. That whisper was a declaration. It said, "I'm not the enforcer anymore. I'm the king." That's what made the ambush more than an attack. It was a political coup. A statement of supremacy. A shift in the power structure. There was no coronation, no ceremony, just violence. Because Solo doesn't make speeches. He makes examples. In wrestling, fans are conditioned to expect betrayal. We've seen it countless times, Shawn kicking Marty through the barbershop window, Rollins chair-shotting Roman and Ambrose, Kevin Owens turning on Sami Zayn. But this felt different. It wasn't a surprise heel turn. It was an execution. Clean. Fast. Cold. And worse, personal. You don't do that to a stranger. You don't whisper in the ear of someone you just met. That kind of moment only hits when it's someone who once sat beside you. Ate with you. Trained with you. Carried the same stories. And that's what Jacob Fatu represented, shared memory. Shared struggle. Shared roots. Solo spit on that. And for what? To make sure no one else dared enter his world without permission. The camera lingered on Fatu's body after the attack. Not for long, but long enough to let it sink in. He wasn't twitching. He wasn't rolling out of the ring. He was flat. Still. Eyes half open. Like a man whose entire belief system had just been shattered in public. And that's exactly what happened. Fatu didn't get betrayed because he was weak. He got betrayed because he believed they were still family. He walked into SmackDown thinking the bond meant something. That the shared blood would shield him. Maybe not from a tough match, but from being turned into a spectacle. He was wrong. Solo used that belief against him. He waited for the right moment. Not when Jacob was at his most arrogant or most reckless, but when he was unguarded. That's the cruelty of it. Solo didn't just blindside him physically. He targeted the emotional blind spot. That unspoken trust that still existed under the surface. And then he detonated it. The beauty of the ambush, if you want to call it that, was its economy. It didn't take 5 minutes. It didn't require a convoluted plan. 2 moves. 1 whisper. Then Solo walked away. It's hard to describe just how heavy the arena felt in those moments. Not just stunned. Changed. The crowd had no chance to throw. No holy sh*t, no you suck, no fight forever. This wasn't that kind of moment. Because when betrayal feels real, people freeze. It's human. You see someone collapse not from a finisher, but from the knife in his back, and your brain stops processing this as entertainment. It starts wondering if you just saw something too raw. And that's what makes this ambush so devastating. It blurred the line between storyline and statement. Jacob Fatu's arrival wasn't just derailed. It was stomped out. A man with main event potential was cut down before the ink on his contract dried. Not because he failed, but because Solo didn't let him try. And that's the core of Solo's character now. He's not a competitor. He's a controller. He doesn't wait for opponents to rise. He breaks them before they take their first breath. And if that means taking out his own blood, so be it. Because Solo Sikoa isn't trying to defend the bloodline legacy anymore. He's trying to rewrite it, in his own image. And that rewrite began the moment he threw that super kick. The ambush wasn't about settling scores. It was about sending a message to the entire wrestling world: I'm not here to be the next Roman. I'm here to be the last one standing. This is my island now. 5 words. Softly spoken. No rage. No volume. Just whispered like a secret too dangerous to speak aloud. But those 5 words shook the foundation of the WWE Universe harder than any title match in recent memory. Because what Solo Sikoa said in that moment wasn't just a catchphrase. It was a declaration of war. A new flag had been planted. And it didn't have Roman Reigns' symbol on it. That one sentence did what no promo, no heel turn, and no WrestleMania swerve has done in years. It told us everything we needed to know, in the quietest way possible. In that moment, the storyline didn't just move forward, it detonated. This is my island now was more than a mic drop. It was a funeral for the version of the bloodline that fans thought still existed. The united front. The tribal hierarchy. The shared legacy. That version is dead now, buried under the cold authority of Solo Sikoa's ambition. Let's break down what those 5 words really meant. To the crowd, it was shocking. To Jacob Fatu, it was betrayal. But to Solo? It was inevitable. Solo Sikoa has always played the background. He was the muscle. The enforcer. The one who didn't talk unless it was with his fists. While Roman Reigns played chess and Paul Heyman whispered strategies, Solo was the loaded gun they kept holstered at their waist. And he stayed quiet, for a long time. Loyal. Deadly. Controlled. But what happens to a weapon when there's no hand left holding it? It finds its own target. This is my island now was the moment Solo decided to stop being a tool and start being a ruler. A ruler of what, exactly? Not a title. Not a faction. Something more symbolic, the narrative. For over 3 years, the bloodline dominated WWE not just through match wins, but through storytelling. It wasn't about belts. It was about legacy. About being at the top of the food chain and reshaping the company around one family. One heritage. One name. But that legacy always revolved around Roman. Roman Reigns was the tribal chief. He wore the golden glove, sat at the head of the table, made the decisions, got the camera close-ups. Everyone else, Jimmy, Jay, Solo, they were orbiting planets around his sun. And now? That sun has set. Roman has been absent. Injured. Silent. The family has fractured. Jimmy and Jay left. Paul Heyman has become a ghost of his former self. And for weeks, Solo waited. Waited to see if anyone would step in and fix what was broken. No one did. So he took it. No speech. No negotiation. Just action. And in taking it, he didn't go after a belt. He didn't challenge a rival. He destroyed family. That's what separates Solo from everyone else. Roman asserted dominance over opponents. Solo asserts dominance over his own blood. And make no mistake, there's a massive difference between beating a rival and dismantling a relative. Beating an enemy is tactical. Beating family? That's personal. But that's exactly what makes Solo so dangerous now. He doesn't see family as protection. He sees it as competition. Threats. People who could rise and take what he believes is his. So rather than wait for them to try, he strikes first. He did it to Jimmy. He did it to Jay. And now, he's done it to Jacob. And not just done it, he did it with surgical precision. Because if you're going to say this is my island now, you can't just attack anyone. You have to make an example out of someone the fans believe in. Someone the locker room respects. Someone whose defeat carries weight. And Jacob Fatu was that someone. His arrival came with buzz. Hype. History. It felt like the beginning of a new arc, an injection of energy into the dying lungs of the bloodline. Fans saw him as the one who could revive the legacy. A monster with heart. A warrior with charisma. A missing puzzle piece that could either restore the family or challenge Roman one day. Solo saw something else, competition for control. So he didn't just beat him. He neutralized him. And then whispered those 5 words to seal the moment in history. Because what Solo understands, better than anyone, is that dominance isn't about how loud you speak. It's about what you take away from people. He took Fatu's debut. Just happen? Was that supposed to go down like that? This isn't a heel turn. This is straight-up character murder. Fan theories multiplied by the minute. Some thought it was a swerve, a fake-out that would lead to reconciliation next week. Others insisted this was Solo's way of purging the bloodline. A few users, sharper than most, recognized something deeper. WWE wasn't just pushing a new narrative. They were pivoting the axis of their entire top storyline. And the more people rewatched the clip, the more it hit them. This wasn't just wrestling heat. This wasn't just booking. This was personal. It wasn't just the crowd's stunned reaction. It was the absence of typical WWE cues. No referees rushing to the ring. No commentary smoothing it over. No dramatic theme music to punctuate the moment. It felt raw. Unfiltered. Almost too real. That's why it stuck. Because WWE had blurred the line just enough to make fans question what they were watching. Was this part of the plan? Or had Solo gone off script? Wrestling thrives in that gray zone. And this attack planted itself right in the middle of it. Even the commentary team, usually quick with story-building lines, were dead quiet for a full 3 seconds after the Samoan spike. It might not seem like much, but in live television, 3 seconds of silence is eternity. And that silence said everything. On YouTube, WWE's clip of the incident racked up 1 million views in under 3 hours. The comment section was a war zone. Thousands of responses, some in disbelief, some in awe, some genuinely angry. The top comment read, "Solo didn't just attack Jacob. He declared independence." The bloodline civil war starts now. It wasn't just fans reacting. Wrestlers posted too. Sami Zayn, who had once been a bloodline insider himself, tweeted a single word, "Unbelievable." Jey Uso posted a cryptic photo on Instagram, a torn-down palm tree with no caption. Jimmy followed with a SMH tweet that racked up nearly 30,000 likes in an hour. Even non-WWE wrestlers weighed in. From AEW, Powerhouse Wardlow tweeted, "Damn. Didn't expect that. Solo just made himself the biggest threat in the game." Independent stars who had worked with Jacob Fatu during his MLW days voiced support, expressing frustration at how Fatu's debut had been hijacked and sabotaged. But others, especially veterans, applauded the move as one of the most effective character resets in recent memory. Because that's what this was, a reset. For Solo. For Jacob. For the bloodline. One act of sudden violence had redefined everyone's role. And WWE knew it. Backstage sources told Dirt Sheets that the locker room was buzzing. Not with anger, but with curiosity. Even talent who weren't involved in the angle were reportedly watching replays on their phones. Whispers circled about what this meant for SummerSlam, for Survivor Series, for WrestleMania. Producers were reportedly split. Some thought it was the greatest moment on SmackDown in a year. Others were worried it might have burned a bridge too soon, crippling Fatu before he could be established. But that's the thing about shock, it makes everyone talk. In the post-show press availability, Triple H was tight-lipped. What happened out there tonight was real. Sometimes family business goes public. That's all I'll say. That was it. No clarification. No kayfabe denial. Just enough fuel to keep the speculation alive. And while all this was happening online, Fatu still hadn't posted a single thing. No Instagram story. No tweet. No interview. Silence. And the silence made it worse. Because it gave the impression that he was hurt. Not physically, emotionally. Spiritually. As if the betrayal had taken the wind out of more than just his lungs. It took his pride. His purpose. His plan. The narrative that began to form wasn't just that Solo attacked him. It was that Solo stole his moment. Fatu's WWE debut had gone from potential coronation to obliteration. And the world couldn't look away. The following Monday, Raw opened without mentioning Solo or Fatu directly. But for the observant viewer, something was different. Commentary spoke in hushed tones. Video packages played more like documentaries than hype reels. There was a tension threading through every segment. Like everyone in WWE, from creative to cameraman, knew something had changed. Permanently. By Tuesday, merchandise had dropped. A black tee with 5 simple white words in Solo's font, "This is my island now." It sold out in 6 hours. If there was any doubt that WWE was embracing the chaos, that shirt killed it. Because this wasn't just a one-off moment anymore. This was a movement. A new era. The bloodline is no longer a family unit. It's a battlefield. And Solo isn't a side character. He's the center of gravity now. The one who made the most noise without raising his voice. The one who flipped the narrative not by speaking, but by striking. The fallout hasn't stopped. And it won't for a long time. Because the greatest moments in wrestling history aren't planned down to the second. They're born in silence. In whispers. In gasps. In that breath you hold when you realize you just watched something real happen in a world of fiction. That was Solo Sikoa's ambush. And the fallout? It's just getting started. Solo Sikoa's attack on Jacob Fatu looked like a betrayal. It felt like a betrayal. But when the dust settled and the shock faded into analysis, a deeper, more uncomfortable question emerged, a question that started circulating online, backstage, and even in subtle commentary hints. Was it really Solo who betrayed Jacob, or had the betrayal already happened long before that super kick landed? In wrestling, betrayal is usually clean. It's clear who turned on whom. Shawn Michaels sent Marty Jannetty through the window. Seth Rollins took the chair to Roman and Dean. Kevin Owens laid out Sami Zayn. The bad guy is obvious. The moment is unmistakable. But with Solo and Jacob, the story isn't that clean. To understand why, you have to step back. Look beyond the ring. Look past the boots and the bloodline and the branding. Look at the context. Jacob Fatu didn't just walk into WWE as a wrestler. He walked in as a symbol. A symbol of something older. A raw, unpolished energy. A throwback to what the bloodline used to be, fierce, unpredictable, tribal in the truest sense. Not calculated and corporate like Roman. Not theatrical like the Usos. Jacob was real. Gritty. A man who looked like he was born in a fight and never quite left it. His arrival, intentional or not, challenged what Solo had been building in Roman's absence. Think about Solo's position. Roman Reigns disappeared. The Usos fractured and splintered. Paul Heyman began clinging to the past. Solo didn't say much, but every week, he showed up, crushed someone, and walked away. That silence wasn't a lack of personality, it was a strategy. In a family that spoke in riddles and speeches, Solo spoke in dominance. He was slowly becoming the center of gravity. Not the loudest voice. Not the leader. But the one person no one dared to question. And then Jacob arrived. New music. New energy. New threat. Not just to Solo's physical dominance, but to the identity Solo had been forging in the shadows. Jacob represented something raw and magnetic. The type of energy that doesn't follow. The kind that leads. So who really betrayed whom? Did Solo blindside Jacob? Or did Jacob betray the order by simply existing? To Solo, the answer was obvious. He wasn't reacting to a cousin. He was eliminating a problem. Jacob's debut wasn't just a return of blood. It was the return of hierarchy. Old-school hierarchy. The kind that said this man has seniority. He deserves respect. He belongs at the table. Solo has spent months fighting to prove that the table no longer exists. In his eyes, Jacob's presence was the betrayal. It threatened the new system. So Solo reacted the way any apex predator would, with a kill shot. Let's go deeper. Solo Sikoa has never been a politician. He doesn't work angles with words. He works with violence. And in that language, what he did wasn't betrayal. It was preemption. He knew what the crowd saw. A long-lost cousin coming home. A dream match in the making. A potential tag team. Maybe even the rebuilding of the bloodline. But Solo saw something else, a power grab cloaked in sentiment. He didn't want to find out if Jacob would eventually challenge him. He didn't need to wait for the promo package, the slow tension, the stare down at SummerSlam. He made the first move. The only move. And in doing so, he flipped the betrayal narrative. Because what is betrayal, really? Is it hurting someone who trusts you? Or is it refusing to let someone take from you what you bled to build? Solo didn't whisper "I'm sorry." He didn't look shaken. He looked right. Like everything had just been restored. And Jacob? Look closer at his expression on the mat, not just shock. Not just pain. Recognition. He didn't expect the attack, but when it landed, you could see the realization behind his eyes. He knew what this was. Not a one-off act of rage. Not an emotional impulse. This was strategy. Solo didn't lose control. He tightened it. That's what makes this betrayal different from every bloodline rift before it. When Roman manipulated Jay and Jimmy, it was about control through emotional trauma. He used guilt. Loyalty. Honor. When Jimmy turned on Roman, it was about reclaiming dignity. But Solo? Solo's betrayal wasn't about feelings. It was about position. In his mind, this wasn't family drama. It was corporate structure. A hostile takeover. If WWE's top storyline was a company, Solo just walked into the boardroom and fired the newest executive on day one. Without saying a word. And if that's true, if Solo's move was cold strategy, then it forces us to rethink the entire narrative. Maybe he wasn't the villain. Maybe he was just the first one to act with clarity. Jacob Fatu entered SmackDown carrying the weight of fan expectations. We all assumed he'd join the bloodline. Reinforce it. Either prop it up or slowly splinter it further. But none of us questioned whether Solo would be okay with that. We treated Solo like an accessory to the story. He reminded us he's the author now. And like any good author, he killed off the new character before they could rewrite the book. Backstage reports after the show painted a clear picture. Solo didn't hesitate. The segment was tight. Precise. Executed perfectly. No fumbled timing. No miscommunication. It was smooth. Because it was planned. Not just scripted. Planned by the character. That's the scariest part. Solo isn't just dangerous physically. He's tactically lethal. Jacob didn't lose because he was weak. He lost because he thought he was walking into a storyline. Solo knew he was walking into a war. So who really betrayed whom? The answer depends on perspective. To the fans, Solo betrayed Jacob. To Jacob, Solo betrayed the family. But to Solo? They all betrayed him first, by forgetting who he is. By treating him like the last piece of the puzzle instead of the foundation of a new one. By assuming he'd step aside, make room, welcome in another cousin like it's a backyard barbecue. He's not here for BBQs. He's here to rule. And now that he's made his move, the rest of the bloodline better understand, there are no safe returns. There is no family immunity. You don't get to walk into Solo Sikoa's domain and expect respect. You earn it, or you get dropped. And that's not betrayal. That's the new order.